Exegesis. Recollecting the Unborn. Everything is nothing but pure luminous unborn mind in a perfect state of actuosity. This ultimate source of all sources has, by its own virtue, many names. Some call it nirvana, others prefer the name one mind, or even the source of all Buddhas from which all things derive. The Sufists prefer to call it divine nature, Al-Lahat. Christian mystics sometimes refer to it as the true body of Christ. In essence, it has as many names as there are sentient beings. One who is about to search for this unborn mind and does so by seeking it in that which is apparent by its manifested pluralized nature, will do so in vain. But one who desires complete enlightenment about the true nature of this unborn mind will find it within the boundaries of the present mind. There is nothing outside this mind, never has been and never will be. Where the deluded mind goes during its obstruction of its own true nature, the body follows. Yet it can be said that this mind does not actually go anywhere, nor does it come from somewhere. For the apparent going and coming is nothing but mind in a pure delusion mode encaged in a present desire body. This desire body gives rise, by the power of the unborn mind, to a self which by its own becoming is forced to obey certain fundamental universal laws, all based on its continuous and dynamic clinging to phenomena in these mind-projected Dharma realms. This filtering of the light from the unborn mind creates a forced obedience to these inevitable laws, which are created the moment this self becomes. They are the same laws that bring suffering and misery to the same self, due to active or passive conditioning, dependent co-origination. This suffering is entirely created by non-recollection of this self's deluded and encaged original true nature, the unborn mind, all sustained and maintained by its desire to exist in accordance or non-accordance with the special conditioned laws it once created by its own desired becoming. These fundamental laws are generally called or known as karma, that which regulates the pluralized mind, or more objectively put, the pluralized manifestation of cause and effect upon a begotten body in one or several begotten Dharma realms. The fundamental and primal factor behind all this is ignorance. By ignorance of its dynamic and yet immovable true nature, this self undergoes an array of births and deaths in countless Dharma realms until it finally and fully recollects its true nature and thus can return to its original non-affectable no form. The becoming of a dynamic and living self is nothing but pure illusion, manifested and entirely based on the dynamic and yet immovable nature of the unborn mind. By such an observation one can assert that the unborn mind, when obstructed by ignorance, is therefore pluralized into a manifold of self-images, which are created by several obvious reasons, all based on ignorance. Any ideas of self should thus be considered false and imaginary beliefs which have no objective ground in the unborn mind, and yet it can be said that nothing phenomenal about this unborn mind is in itself true or false. It only appears so by the present mind's pluralization, that is, ignorance. All such notions derive from the same source, namely the unborn mind in a pluralized obstruction mode by the created self. In the same way, nothing about this unborn mind is in itself good or evil. It is only opinion, habits, custom, superstition, presumptuous dogmatic views about its pluralized manifestations which makes it so. Based on the previous statement, the proper approach to the unborn mind should be to not try to confirm its nature with ideas or impressions from the pluralized mind, or with ideas or statements from other minds, nor seek confirmation of it in that which appears as phenomenal apparent truth. Thus one seeks proof by investigating that which is prior to one's own ideas or impressions. In doing so, one approaches its non-describable and luminous nature by proper observation of this dynamic and yet immovable nature by constantly abiding mindfully in that which is prior, antecedent to any of its seemingly unceasable appearances and manifestations. These appearances and manifestations are what enters through the 5 sense organs of the present desire body and becomes real when the present ignorant mind develops and sustains dependent co-origination with the same. Such an observation should also include all generated thoughts and memories derived from all these appearances and manifestations. When such a continuous non-action is initiated and sustained by mainly determination, discipline and faith during the recollection process, the apparent starts to become transparent in accordance to the degree of the present mind's recollection of its own true nature, that is, the unborn mind. The time this takes for each seeking self depends solely on the same self's current karmic conditions and desire to free itself from all suffering, that is, unbecoming or nirvana. It is within the power of the mind to recollect its own true nature by reason or practice or by both these methods combined. Each or both of these methods utilized due to one's present karmic conditioned state. Thus it can be said that the best teacher is there, before your very eyes. For without it you would not be able to comprehend this video, nor would you be able to reason or dispute it. As it is within the power of the mind to recollect its original and true nature, one can say that this is a fundamental proof of its existence in the present imagined time. Yet it can be said that its true nature is non-existent and non-equivalent to any created form or idea, if such form or idea would manifest itself during the recollection process. Such a recollection can only start in a state of confusion about what is ultimate truth and what is apparent truth. In due mind-manifested time and mind-manifested environment, depending on a fully ceased conditioning, the quest ends in complete and perfect enlightenment, that is, mind's full and complete recollection of its own true nature. When this has taken place, one is truly awakened with all that signifies such a freedom. Thus one has the complete freedom to cessate the present desire body self at will and enter parinirvana, or the source of all Buddhas. For where there is no confusion of any kind about the unborn mind and its perfect luminous nature, there is no longer any need of enlightenment about the same. Best regards, Tozen.